Let me ask you this question. You've had your abortion and it's a rough path. There's zero doubt about that. I've walked down that path personally, and I've also been a participant in it. Have you told yourself in some way or other that you don't feel like you deserve to be forgiven for that decision of that abortion? That people will judge you, that people will reject you, have nasty things to say, because there's a lot of feelings around abortion. And I'm not going to say there isn't. We all know there is. And this isn't a decision that any of us have ever made lightly. Abortion can come from, in my experience, a couple of different avenues. So abortion can result from abuse, physical and or emotional abuse. And then abortion comes from, a surprise pregnancy that had nothing to do with abuse from another person. It can carry different types of feelings of the reason you had the abortion. And yet it can still feel, even years later, that if people knew, they would, maybe they would feel that you are undeserving because of the abortion. So I'm asking you to look at it from your perspective. How do you feel? Not what others feel, not what others tell you to feel, or what you may have read online from people that are anti-abortion. If we are trying to heal, if you want to heal the pain, the trauma of this abortion, and it could even have been multiple abortions, we all come from different places. And that doesn't make it wrong. It's just, I'm throwing out the possibilities for you to just to consider. And it's something, this experience that you had, it bubbles up from time to time, sometimes very frequently. Sometimes you could go months without thinking about it. And you still feel this undeserving, like you don't feel that you deserve anything good. You don't deserve to be forgiven. You don't deserve to have a full, joyful, loving life and relationships. Would it surprise you to know that most women have those same feelings? Many times when we don't talk about it, we hold it all in and it just stays trapped in our bodies. We feel like we're the only ones that know this feeling, that we're on this island all by ourselves and no one could possibly understand. There's so many women out there who have that same feeling. I was one of them for a lot of years, and well, it's just defined a lot of years. So I recently turned 65. I had my abortion when I was probably 21, 22. Some of these pieces I've blocked out. I understand that. And as I talk more and more about it, there's bits and pieces of remembrance that come back, and that's okay. That means that I'm ready to remember those bits and pieces. When they don't come up, I don't want to force them. I just let things be and let it happen when I'm ready. So anyway, that was what? 40 some years ago. I went through my abortion recovery when I was in my, so that's quite a gap in time. The reason I tell you this is those feelings don't go away. It's feelings and trauma that we truly need to move through and heal and really allow the healing. And it comes in layers, absolutely comes in layers. But the biggest thing I really hope you hear me say is you are not by yourself. You're not alone. I've been through it. Others have been through it. And we grapple with the deserving. And once I started down this abortion recovery, one of the first things that I worked on was honestly telling my story. And when I did that within a very small group of people who have been through the same experience, you immediately connect with the group because while the experiences are different, the feelings are very, very much the same about feeling undeserved, unloved, feeling like you might be rejected, and really the shame and the guilt. We have all gone through it, whether you were the person that had the abortion or you were a participant. So I've had the abortion and I was a participant. Even though I tried to talk that person out of it to reconsider other avenues because I knew what they were going to go through. They didn't want to hear it. They wouldn't have any of it. They were determined. So they asked me to go. with them so they weren't alone, and I was there for them. I'm not sure which is harder sometimes. I remember them both very clearly. Being the person that had the abortion, it was rough. We all know that. It was rough. Yours was rough. Mine was rough. Being a participant is a very different type of experience, especially when you know what that other person's going to go through. So it's really two different kinds of healing for me. And when I think about it, but I had to start first by telling my story, what I was comfortable with telling. And then I wrote out my story through several different types of prompts. And as I moved through just that first stage, I could feel a shift and the burden, the heaviness that was inside me. I felt lighter. It's still a heavy burden. I still hadn't moved through it all, but it was a beginning. It was the first step. And it was really good. Another step that I had to work through. I don't want to say had to. You have the choice not to. You always have choices. The next step I worked through was forgiveness. And forgiveness comes in many different forms. So what I will say is the Divine Father, there is nothing he won't forgive us for. Nowhere, I don't believe that I've ever seen, does it say, I will forgive you for all your indiscretions, all your sins except for abortion. I don't think it says that anywhere. It says he will forgive us for everything. Every morning when we wake up, we are forgiven. We are forgiven before we ask. We're forgiven before the day's out. It becomes about forgiving yourself. It was also a big turning point for me when I worked through the forgiveness that I needed to provide, to give to the doctor who performed the abortion, to the nurse that was in the room with me for a couple of reasons. One, I got very sick afterwards, and I mean sick, like almost died sick. I was in the hospital for a long time because, unbeknownst to me, I was too far along to legally have an abortion. No one told me that until afterwards when I called them and say, hey, look, buddy, you know what? I got really sick because there was an infection. And that's when he's like, well, I shouldn't have done it anyway. You were too far along. That just, honestly, that crushed me. I do remember that. And then I had to forgive the nurse in the room. I was so hysterical in that room. And all she kept asking is, are you okay? Are you okay? And she was holding my hand. I clearly was not okay. And she knew that. And when I look back at that, we knew. I mean, I knew she knew I was not okay, but the procedure went on. I needed to forgive them. I needed to forgive them so I could free myself. And that's really a lot of what this is, freeing yourself, letting yourself out of that cell. And those are the two big movements as I work through that helped me the most. There were other parts of this as well. I'm not going to go into all of them here, but my biggest thing I hope you hear me say is you are deserving. You are so deserving. And I want you to have that same release, that same freedom, that peace that you were always forgiven and that you forgave yourself, and to acknowledge it was an abortion. And I think the final piece in that for me was hearing, believing in my heart, in my whole soul, that that child, they forgave me too. They understand and they're waiting for me. They're waiting for me, not to condemn me, not to be angry with me, ostracize me, or shut me out, but to say, Mom, I'm here. I've been waiting the whole time. I love you. So, how do we start that process? I believe this is very individual for each person that I meet. I meet them wherever they're at, whatever you are ready to share. I'm there for it. I give you that space, and then we start to work through it and we work through it gently, give you time to work through these pieces. And then I give you some different tools to help you. And we work through those. I show you how these work. I'll share another thing with you. So years after I went through the abortion recovery, and I know I'm forgiven. And I know I have forgiven others for the abortion. And I've forgiven myself, most importantly. I had to learn to love myself again instead of holding myself up of saying, how could you possibly have done this, Terry? And it comes in layers. So what I learned to do, and I got certified in, and I use it for different types of things, but different healing practices and energy healing. It also works really, really well for abortion recovery, and that's tapping. It's really about what's coming up for you now. I create phrases and we tap through those sequences. And you can tap, you can Google this, you can YouTube this. I understand all that. And I've done that. And then I've also worked with someone on it. And here's what I can tell you from my own experience is when I work with a partner on this, it's so much more powerful and so much more effective. And sometimes, you might get yourself into an emotional feeling that's coming up that might feel like a lot. I mean, just seriously overwhelming. And that's when that partner can really come alongside you and help support you and help you move through that. Or I think it's called putting it in a box, if I remember right. And we just we put things in a box for a short period of time till our next session and we meet again and then we bring it out of the box and then we work through that. That was actually the biggest shift for me is the tapping seemed to be for me in my experience the final piece that said, "Yup, okay, here we go. This is it." It helps to move so much energy. It helps to really help with the healing. And like I said, tapping can be used for so many different things. And when I started using it for abortion recovery, that was pretty amazing. Pretty darn amazing. The other thing I really want to speak to here today is we talked about feeling deserving. Do you feel deserved? Do you feel like you don't deserve to be forgiven? When we hold all this in, we don't feel deserving. We choose to ignore what's coming up for us. And I know women who I've actually had them say, "Hey, look, I had an abortion. I felt fine." They could have worked through it. They didn't mention they worked through it or that they healed from it, which leads me to believe that they have ignored or shut away those feelings so tightly that they may never come up, but if they do, it's gonna come back likely in a flood, and it's gonna be like, I guess, I don't feel so fine. And when we choose to lock things away and not deal with them, it can have a physical aspect on us. So one of the things I learned, gosh, 4 or 5 years ago, I guess, is in my 20s, after I had the abortion, I started having problems with my heart. I think they call it AFib or something like that. And I had been to emergency rooms, I've been to doctors for at least 30 some years. And everyone kept saying, learn how to regulate your breathing, put your head in ice water. Those were the two big ones. I learned how to regulate my breathing when I felt one of these attacks come on because I was not putting my head in ice water and I still won't. Anyway, and as I got older, those attacks became less and less. And then I started correlating it. If I had junk food, I would start to go into AFib again. I was like, well, that's odd. But it's like, okay, that's fine. I don't eat junk food a lot. Every once in a while, we'll just cut it out. So I did that. And then it started coming back more and more and more and harder, longer, more frequent. And by the time it's done, if you can't get your breath regulated in order to almost like, I guess, like hitch your heartbeat to kick it back into you feel like you've just ran a marathon all day long. Your body's exhausted. Your mind's exhausted and you just need to sleep. I remember or in my earlier days when I was going through these and it would happen and I could not get it to regulate. I would try and fall asleep. Okay, that's not easy, but the reason I tried to fall asleep is so my body relaxed, the muscles in my body relaxed, or at least try and relax enough to go into almost like a meditative state, if you will. And it would have the same effect. And then I could feel that hitch coming in my chest and my throat. And I knew I was close to having my heartbeat go back into a normal rhythm. Now, the reason I tell you all this is when I was in the abortion recovery program, after the program, because I was having more and more attacks. If I don't know if that's what you call them, but that's what I call them. And I was getting concerned. So I go through the abortion recovery. So I kind of have that backwards. I went through the abortion recovery. The symptoms were coming back hard and fast. I went to see a doctor about it, and they told me, Terry, that's not normal. That is so not normal, because each time you have one, eventually what happens is it weakens your heart. I was like, nobody ever told me that before. They always told me to regulate it through my breathing, or I stick my head into, a sink of ice cold water to shock my system back into normal heart rhythm. It's like, no, it's not normal, and it can cause a lot of damage. So they flipped me to a cardiologist, and we talked about ablation surgery. So that's what I had. And I ran into, before I had the surgery, I ran into one of the ladies that was in the abortion recovery program. And we got to be very good friends over this. We just related so deeply with each other, going through similar experiences. And I was telling her about the AFib and the ablation, and she's like, yeah, she had something very similar. And she had a doctor who actually did a study on it. And they found that a lot of women who had abortions had AFib and needed ablation surgery, or I don't know if you call it surgery or not. It felt like it. So anyway, it seems to be that is a byproduct almost with a lot of women when they have abortion? Or is there some unexplained pain in your body, neck aches, headaches, lower back, gut, and digestive issues that are unexplained because no one can find the cause? If you're holding in all of these emotions and they've got no place to go because they're trapped in your body, they're coming out somewhere. And a lot of times it is unexplained pain within our body, digestive issues. That was another big one for me because of this. So, do you have unexplained pain in your body? Do you feel like you deserve to work through the healing of abortion? Do you feel deserving of forgiving, of love, of finding joy and peace again in your life? If you're not feeling deserving, I would ask you to also look around you at the relationships that you have. If you don't feel deserving of something better, something more for yourself, are you calling in the same type of people in your life, in your inner circle? Because typically we do. They have gone through a trauma of something of some sort that they have not healed, and they're holding this in. And it's a story that's playing in your head over and over again. And it continues to bring down your emotional vibration, your energy vibration, and what you're putting out into the world, what you're holding in your body. When we move through the healing and the forgiveness and feeling deserving, you will start to see subtle shifts in your body, feeling lighter. Maybe the headaches dissipate, or they're not as frequent. The gut issues start to feel less and less. Maybe the pain in your shoulder and your neck, that starts to dissipate as well. These are all possibilities. But I would urge you to pay attention to your body. What's it telling you? Look at the people in your circle. Will you allow yourself to seek support? Because if we can seek support and we don't feel all alone, and we're not trying to do this by ourselves, because that is so much harder than walking this path with another person who's already been through it. It is truly so much harder, because we can start swimming in that soup all over again, and we're just not finding the shoreline to grab a hold of and pull ourselves out. Ask those questions. And are you ready? And if you're ready, I would invite you to reach out to me. Let's talk about it. Let's see where you're at and where we go from there. So in the show notes, I will leave my social media handles for you to DM me through there. I know I've said it multiple times. I still have not fixed the website. So I'm hoping I can get that done in January, but you're not alone. And you are so deserving. That little voice inside you that says, no, no one will understand. Keep it to yourself. Don't tell anyone. Don't do that. The invitation is there for you. Take me up on it. Meet me virtually on a Zoom call. Let's see if we click and what the next steps might look like for you. But you are deserving. You deserve to be loved. You deserve a full, joyful life. You deserve fun. We tell ourselves so many times we're not. We are. So bye for now. And I look forward to hearing from you.